I broke my town's only Christmas rule. Now it's coming. The only rule in my town on Christmas Eve is to stay inside with the lights off. I thought it was a stupid superstition, but I peeked outside 5 minutes ago, and now a smiling face is staring back at me from every window, from every single pane of glass. I can see them now, even when I close my eyes. Their smiles are burned onto the backs of my eyelids, a gallery of identical silent grins. I shouldn't have looked. God, I shouldn't have looked. It all feels so stupid now, my arrogance. To get how I ended up here, huddled in the dark heart of my own home, a prisoner surrounded by grinning sentinels. You have to understand my town. You have to understand St. Killian's. I moved back 6 months ago. It wasn't some triumphant homecoming. It was a retreat. My marriage had dissolved into a quiet, amicable failure. My graphic design business got swallowed whole by bigger, cheaper competitors. And my apartment felt less like a home and more like a tomb for my ambitions. So I came back to the only place I had left, the house I grew up in. My folks were gone, retired to a sun-drenched condo in Florida, leaving the 2-story colonial to gather dust and memories. St. Killian's is a town pickled in nostalgia. Population 912. We've got 1 grocery store, 1 gas station, and a whole lot of trees. It's the kind of place where change is viewed with suspicion, and tradition is everything. And no tradition is more sacred, more absolute than what we call the gloom. It happens every Christmas Eve. As the sun dips below the jagged line of the western pines, the town performs this synchronized ritual of self-erasure. Street lights don't turn on. Festive decorations are unplugged. Inside every home, switches are flicked off, curtains are drawn, and families settle into a forced, silent darkness that lasts until sunrise on Christmas morning. The only rule during the gloom is simple. Stay inside, lights off, and no matter what you hear, no matter what you think you see, you do not look outside. As a kid, it was terrifying. My dad, normally the most logical guy you'd ever meet, would become a different person on Christmas Eve. His face would turn into a stony mask. He'd check the locks 3 times and stuff a towel along the base of the front door. To keep the drafts out, he'd say. But his eyes told a different story. We'd sit in the living room, the only light coming from the dying embers in the fireplace, and just listen to the profound, unnatural silence of a town holding its breath. The official story, it was a tribute to our founding families, a way to experience a truly silent night and reflect. It was a quaint, quirky tradition that got our town a brief mention on a regional news segment once a decade or so, but every kid knew the real story. The one whispered on playgrounds and in the back of school buses. The story of the carolers, or the watchers, or the grinners. The name changed, but the story was always the same. They said that on Christmas Eve, things walk the streets of St. Killian's. Things drawn to light and to watching eyes. They don't want presents or cookies. They want to be seen. And if you see them, they get to see you. And once they see you, they want you to join their caroling. Forever. Growing up, I hated it. It felt like a mass psychosis that had infected 912 otherwise normal people. When I left for college, I revelled in Christmases filled with light and noise. I'd call my parents on Christmas Eve, and my mom's strained whisper from a dark room would just deepen my resentment for the town's backward superstitions. So when I came back this year, a 35-year-old failure returning to his childhood bedroom, that resentment was sharper than ever. The town felt like a cage, and the gloom was its most oppressive bar. My loneliness was a physical ache. Christmas, a season I once loved, was now just a reminder of everything I'd lost. My ex-wife, my daughter, a life that felt like it belonged to someone else. The afternoon of Christmas Eve was cold and grey. I watched my neighbours go through the motions. Dale from across the street methodically unplugging his inflatable snowman. Mrs. Gable next door taking down her wreath, her movements quick and practiced. There was a quiet anxiety in the air, a shared tension that I refused to be a part of. It's just a story, I muttered to the empty house. A ghost story for a town that's already dead. As sunset approached, I made a point of leaving my lights on. A small, pathetic little rebellion. The festive string of lights around my front window blazed in defiance against the encroaching twilight. At 5:17 p.m, my phone buzzed. It was Dale. The text was short. Leo. Lights. I ignored it. Another buzz. Mrs. Gable. Leo, please. It's time. I turned my phone off and tossed it on the couch. I was an adult. I wasn't going to be scared into sitting in the dark by some campfire story. I turned on the TV, cracked open a beer, and tried to pretend it was just another night. But the silence was insidious. One by one, the lights of the houses around me vanished. The world outside my window dissolved into an inky, featureless black. My home became an island of light in an ocean of darkness, and I felt a sudden, sharp spike of exposure, like an actor on a massive, empty stage. The silence pressed in. It wasn't just quiet, it was a vacuum. No cars, no distant dogs, no hum of electricity. The town had simply ceased to exist. That's when I first heard it. It started so faintly I thought I was imagining it. A high, thin note carried on the wind. But there was no wind. It was a hum. A single, unwavering musical note, like a wet finger tracing the rim of a crystal glass. Distant, but it was there. I turned the TV down. The hum was clearer now, coming from the east, from the old part of town by the river. It was a strangely melodic sound, but with a dissonant undertone that set my teeth on edge. I walked to the front window, peering through my defiant lights into the suffocating darkness. I saw nothing. Of course I saw nothing. The humming grew, not in volume, but in presence. It felt closer, fuller, and it was changing. It wasn't a single note anymore, but multiple notes weaving together in a strange, tuneless harmony. It was voices. A choir. But it wasn't any Christmas carol I'd ever heard. The melody was alien. It slid up and down a scale that felt wrong. A song made of notes that shouldn't exist. My heart started hammering against my ribs. The childhood fears I'd so proudly buried began to stir. I could almost hear my father's stern whisper, "You don't look, Leo. You never, ever look." But I wasn't a child. I was a man, alone in his empty house, listening to what was probably just drunk teenagers trying to spook the old folks. That's all it was. It had to be. And a part of me, the lonely, broken part, desperately wanted to see another human face, even some idiot kids. I needed to prove I wasn't alone. My defiance curdled into a reckless, desperate curiosity. "Stupid," I whispered, the word tasting like ash. "This is all so stupid." I went to the back of the house, to the small laundry room window that looked out over the overgrown yard. The festive lights didn't reach here, just pure, unadulterated darkness. The humming was louder back here, surrounding the house, that choir of wrong notes. My hand trembled as I reached for the edge of the thin vinyl curtain. Just a peek, I told myself, a quick look to prove there's nothing there. Then I'll turn off the lights and sit in the dark like a good little boy. I pulled the curtain back less than an inch. At first, only blackness, the familiar shape of my neighbour's fence, the skeletal outline of the old oak tree. Nothing. Relief so powerful it made me dizzy washed over me. I almost laughed. See? Nothing. And then my eyes adjusted. There was a man standing by the oak tree. He was perfectly still, dressed in dark, old-fashioned clothes that seemed to swallow the faint starlight. But it wasn't the clothes that made the air in my lungs turn to ice. It was his face. He was looking right at my window, and he was smiling. It was the most awful smile I had ever seen, impossibly wide, stretching his mouth into a grotesque, unnatural U. It wasn't a smile of joy. It was a fixed, painted-on expression of absolute, vacant ecstasy. His eyes were wide, round and black, reflecting nothing, just pits of darkness above that horrific, static grin. I slammed the curtain shut, my hand flying to my mouth to stifle a scream. My breath came in ragged, painful gasps. Not real. A mannequin. Someone's sick prank. It had to be. I stumbled away from the window, my back hitting the washing machine. The humming outside swelled, the wrong notes vibrating through the floorboards. My mind raced for a logical explanation. Any port in this storm of panic. A trick of the light. A shadow. My lonely, stressed-out brain projecting my childhood fears. I had to be sure. I had to prove it was nothing. I crept from the laundry room, my legs feeling like lead, to the dining room window. This one looked out onto the narrow path leading to Mrs. Gable's property. My hand shook so badly I could barely grab the curtain. I took a deep breath and pulled it aside. She was standing on the path, not 10 feet away. Another one. A woman this time, in a long dark dress. But the face was the same wide, ecstatic, dead smile. The same black, bottomless eyes fixed on me. She hadn't been there a minute ago. It was impossible. She was just there. As if she'd materialized from the shadows. A strangled sob escaped my lips. I let the curtain fall. This wasn't a prank. This is the point where my brain broke. The 5 minutes ago that now feels like a lifetime. I ran. I ran through my house like a trapped animal, to the living room window, the one still blazing with my stupid, defiant lights. I tore the curtain aside. 3 of them stood on my lawn, in a neat row, shoulder to shoulder, all with the same face, the same smile, the same dead black eyes staring right at me. Up the stairs, my feet pounding on the wood, the bathroom, the small frosted window. I could see a silhouette through the distorted glass, a tall, thin shape, and the unmistakable curved line of that grin pressed right against the pane. My bedroom, the window overlooking the street. More of them, dozens. They lined the street on both sides, standing perfectly still on my neighbours' dark lawns, all turned toward my house, an army of smiling statues in the suffocating gloom. And that brings us to now. Back downstairs, I killed the lights, every last one, plunged myself into the same darkness as everyone else. But it was too late. My defiant little island of light had become a beacon, and they had answered. I'm sitting on the floor in the hallway, the point in the house furthest from any window. It doesn't matter. I can see them. In the corner of my eye, in the reflection of the dark TV screen, in the polished surface of a framed photo on the wall. Everywhere there's a reflection, a face is staring back. A smiling face. They aren't just outside anymore. They're in the glass. The humming has stopped. It's been replaced by a new sound. A soft, gentle tap. Tap. Tapping. It's coming from the living room window. Then another tap from the kitchen. Another from the dining room. It's synchronized. A gentle, rhythmic, patient tapping on every single window pane at once. Tap. 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 they want in, or they want me to come out. My phone, abandoned on the couch, suddenly lights up. A text from a number I don't recognize. My fingers are numb, but I crawl over and grab it. The message: "We saw you look. You are very good at it. We are smiling for you." My blood ran cold. Before I can process it, another message comes through. "Come and see you present." The tapping stops. The silence that follows is somehow worse. Then, a new sound. A soft scraping from the front door. A dry, rasping sound, like a single long fingernail being dragged slowly down the wood. I scrambled backward, away from the door. The scratching stops. A faint rustle. A small, white rectangle slides under the door and stops on the welcome mat. I can't help it. I have to see. I crawl toward it, my whole body shaking. It's a folded piece of paper, torn from a kid's sketchbook, with a tremor that feels like it could shake my bones apart. I unfold it. It's a crayon drawing of my house. The lights are on, and outside every window there's a stick figure. Dozens of them. Every single one has the same face. A circle with 2 dots for eyes and a huge curving U-shaped smile. Underneath the drawing, in messy childish letters, are 4 words: "You saw us first." The doorknob begins to jiggle. A slow, gentle turning at first, back and forth, testing the lock. The metal clicks. Then it gets more insistent, more violent. The whole door rattles in its frame, the wood groaning. And then, the singing starts again. It's not the distant choir from before. It's right outside my door, loud. 100 voices in perfect, terrifying unison. And this time, I recognize the tune. Santa Claus is coming to town. But the words... God, the words are wrong. "We see you when you're peeking," they sing, a grotesque blend of childish glee and guttural menace. "We know you're awake. We know you broke the only rule, so come out for goodness sake," the verse repeats, over and over. A demented looping carol of accusation, louder and louder. I run. Nowhere to go. I scramble for the basement door, tear it open, and tumble down the wooden steps, landing in a heap on the cold concrete. I slam the heavy door and throw the thick iron bolt across. It's pitch black down here. The air is cold and smells of damp earth and decay, but it's not quiet. The distorted caroling seeps through the floorboards above me, a muffled, maddening nursery rhyme. The rattling of the front door has been joined by a splintering, cracking sound. They're getting through. I'm huddled in the far corner, clutching my knees to my chest, trying to make myself small, trying to disappear. I know it's pointless. The rule wasn't about keeping them out, it was about not letting them know you were there. By looking, I didn't just see them, I invited them. I sent a personal invitation into the darkness. Here I am. I see you. And now they've come to collect. The sounds from upstairs have changed. The splintering has stopped. The singing has faded. There's a new sound. Footsteps. Slow, shuffling heavy footsteps on the wooden floor of my living room. They're inside. My heart is going to explode. The footsteps are moving through the house. A slow, methodical exploration. The creak of the floorboards in the kitchen. Then the dining room. They're walking the same path I walked when I was looking for them. I'm crying now, silent, hot tears tracking paths through the dust on my face. The footsteps are in the hallway, right above me. They stop directly over my head, directly outside the basement door. The bolt is thick, solid iron, but I know, with a certainty that chills me to my soul, it won't matter. The round brass doorknob at the top of the basement stairs begins to turn. Slowly, silently. The humming is back. Not from upstairs. It's coming down the stairs. A soft single voice. And it's singing my name. Leo. I can't see anything in this darkness. But I know. I just know that whatever is coming down those stairs is smiling. Hi everyone, thanks for listening. That story was written by me. If you enjoyed it, hit subscribe, like, and maybe join the membership so you can say I was here before she got weirdly famous. Perks include cool emojis, member badges, early access to videos and more. Oh, and I've lowered the top tier price right down to its minimum just in case anyone fancies an upgrade. You get everything from the first tier, plus merch discounts, member-only videos, and also have a story written about you if you stay for 3 months. Which would be a pretty cool thing to tell your friends, right? Yes, it would. Don't lie. Speaking of merch, I have merch now, so check that out. A massive shout out to my members. Or rather, member, MarkMathern7322. If you're on a mobile or tablet, please consider hyping the video. It pushes it a tiny bit further out into the YouTube wild. If you really, really enjoyed it, I think I have that super thanks button down there somewhere. Even £1 helps me toward my goal of making this a full-time thing. Then I can just have one full-time thing instead of my day job and this full-time. I'm here a lot. Good night.